Here's a moment every gardener knows all too well, dear friend. You're standing there in the garden center, the warm smell of potting soil in the air, sunlight catching the glossy photos on those seed packets, and then your eyes land on the price. You pause. You tilt your head. You whisper to yourself, almost embarrassed, "Has it always been this expensive? I've had that same moment more times than I can count, and especially these past few years." And the truth is, many of us instinctively sense something isn't quite right about how high those prices have climbed. But very few of us realize just how much those little packets have been marked up before reaching our hands. When you buy seeds at a nursery, you're paying for the bright lights, the seasonal displays, the freight shipping, the middlemen, the branding, and the markups, layered one on top of another. By the time it reaches that little rotating rack in the corner, the price can be double or triple what the same seeds cost before entering the retail world. And the saddest part, most older gardeners, especially those living on a fixed income, believe these are the only options available. We're shown a narrow sliver of varieties, often the ones that sell fast, not the ones best suited to our climate or small spaces. But what if I told you there's a whole hidden world beyond the nursery shelves? A world that professional growers, botanical gardens, and longtime hobbyists quietly rely on every single season. These aren't shady or questionable places. They're reputable suppliers, tucked away online with catalogs deeper than anything you'll ever see in a store. It's almost like discovering a secret library, one you never knew you had permission to enter. I remember the first time I stumbled onto one of these sites. I felt like I'd walked through a door into the real gardener's marketplace where ordinary folks could buy like the pros. And for many older gardeners, this knowledge is more than just convenient. It's empowering. When your back doesn't bend like it used to, or your hands tire after a long afternoon, you want plants that are worth your effort. You want seeds that germinate strong varieties that don't struggle in your region, and options that work beautifully in small patios, raised beds, or a handful of containers. I once met an 82-year-old woman who grew an entire salad garden on a tiny balcony, using seeds she ordered directly from a professional supplier. She said it made her feel young again because the plants finally cooperated. Retail stores limit what you can choose. They decide which tomatoes you should grow, which herbs you should try, and which flowers fit the season. Meanwhile, countless varieties, heat-tolerant, compact, heritage-rich, or uniquely flavorful, never make it to their shelves simply because they're not popular. But your garden shouldn't depend on what someone else thinks will sell. Whether you live on a shaded lot, a breezy balcony, or a sunny strip behind your fence, the right seeds can mean the difference between frustration and joy. And those right seeds often never appear in a store rack. That's why the idea of skipping the middleman feels so refreshing. Imagine choosing seeds based on what you want, not what's offered to you. Imagine discovering compact cucumbers, perfect for containers, tomatoes bred for dry climates, lettuces that don't bolt in the heat. All from sources trusted by experts. A garden shaped by your preferences, your climate, your pace of life. One where you save money, avoid disappointment, and finally feel like you're growing with intention rather than chance. That sense of freedom is something many gardeners don't realize they've been missing. Now, before we continue, I want to reassure you the sources we're about to explore are legitimate, well-established, and deeply respected in the gardening community. Some are nonprofits. Some are small family-run companies. Others are used by universities and research gardens. These aren't obscure corners of the internet. They're simply not advertised to everyday shoppers because nurseries depend on retail sales to survive. And truthfully, if everyone knew about these sources, many garden centers would lose their profit margins overnight. So here's the journey we'll take together. We'll begin with simple, beginner-friendly sources, places where even brand new gardeners can order with confidence. Then we'll climb toward the more advanced insider-level resources used by professional growers. And finally, at the very end, we'll reach the crown jewel, a completely free source that holds some of the rarest plant genetics in the world. Think of it like walking down a garden path where each step reveals a new kind of beauty and possibility. But before we dive in, let me pour something warm and familiar over this moment. Imagine us sitting together on a quiet porch, two old friends sharing stories about plants we've loved and lost. You don't need youth or money to grow something beautiful. You just need curiosity and a willingness to try. Gardens have always belonged to everyone, especially people like us, who've lived enough life to appreciate slow miracles. If your heart is ready, and I hope it is, let's go discover the places nurseries wish you'd never find. If you've never wandered into the world of Baker Creek heirloom seeds, dear friend, you're in for a treat that feels a bit like opening an old cedar chest in your grandmother's attic full of history surprises and treasures you didn't know existed. Baker Creek, nestled in the gentle hills of Mansfield, Missouri, has become a haven for gardeners who crave something deeper than the standard tomato and basil sold at big box stores. Their catalog is overflowing with varieties that carry stories: beans, once grown by pioneer families; carrots, in unexpected shades of purple; and white tomatoes, treasured by gardeners half a world away. What makes Baker Creek so special isn't just the variety, it's how accessible it all is. A single $3 packet can produce more food than many gardeners realize, especially for those of us tending small patios, raised beds, or a handful of containers. I once met a retired couple from Arkansas who told me they'd grown an entire season's worth of produce in pots using only 2 packets from Baker Creek, tiny patio melons that climbed gently up a trellis, and compact tomatoes that never demanded heavy lifting or staking. Every seed they offer is open-pollinated and non-GMO, which means once you grow a variety you love, you can save seeds year after year at no extra cost. And perhaps the most delightful part is their annual catalog, which looks more like a coffee table book than a seed list full of full-page photos, handwritten histories, and charming stories that remind you gardening isn't just about growing, it's about preserving flavors and traditions. Just remember to order early. Their most popular varieties disappear faster than spring sunshine, often selling out by February. If you've ever wanted your garden to feel personal, meaningful, and a little magical, Baker Creek is where that journey often begins. Seed Savers Exchange, tucked away in the quiet town of Decorah, Iowa, is unlike anything else on this list because it isn't just a seed company, it's a living memory bank for gardeners who believe plants carry stories worth saving. When you browse their offerings, you aren't simply choosing between tomatoes or peppers. You're choosing to keep history alive. Many of their varieties come from families who grew them for generations, long before supermarkets or hybrids dominated the shelves. I remember speaking with a gentleman in his 70s at a community garden who told me he'd found the exact bean his grandmother used to grow in the 1950s through Seed Savers. When he held that little packet, he said it felt like holding a piece of his family's past. That's the emotional power this organization gives to everyday gardeners. Beyond sentiment, their seeds are open-pollinated and incredibly practical for anyone living on a budget. You can save the seeds from your healthiest plants, tuck them into a labeled envelope, and replant year after year without spending another cent. One pot of basil can turn into free seeds for the next decade. They even host seed swaps and a member-exclusive seed exchange, where gardeners trade rare varieties as easily as neighbors sharing a cup of sugar. For someone who loves community but maybe can't get out as much as they used to, receiving seeds from other gardeners across the country can feel like receiving handwritten letters from new friends. If you've ever longed to grow something meaningful, something with roots deeper than soil, Seed Savers Exchange offers exactly that. Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, quietly operating out of Mineral, Virginia, is the kind of company gardeners discover once and then return to year after year. Almost like an old friend who understands your struggles without you having to say a word. Their entire mission centers on varieties that thrive in heat, humidity, and less than perfect soil conditions many of us know all too well, especially in the south or along the east coast. These aren't the pampered, delicate varieties you often find at big garden centers. These are tough, resilient seeds meant for real backyards, with clay soil, hot summers, and unpredictable rain. I once visited a small community garden in Georgia where most plants were wilting by mid-July, but a row of peppers and heat-tolerant beans from southern exposure stood strong and glossy as if the heat barely touched them. The gardener who planted them was a retired schoolteacher in her late 60s, and she told me she switched to southern exposure after years of disappointing harvests from store-bought packets that couldn't handle the climate. What truly sets this company apart is their variety packs, small bundles of related crops that let you test several strains without spending much money. For seniors who garden in containers or smaller raised beds, these bundles take the guesswork out of choosing which variety might work best. And before you finish an order, it's always worth glancing at the shipping costs. Sometimes adding one more packet or variety pack helps you get more for the same shipping fee. Little things like that add up when you're gardening on a budget. Southern exposure might not be flashy or loud, but it embodies something far better: reliability, honesty, and seeds that genuinely care about the climate you live in, just like the gardeners who grow them. Botanical Interests, based in Broomfield, Colorado, is one of those companies you might overlook at first glance. But once you try their seeds, you begin to understand why so many gardeners, especially beginners and older growers, swear by them. What makes this company special isn't just the seeds themselves, but the little classroom hidden inside each packet. When you lift the flap, you're greeted with beautifully written instructions: how deep to plant, how often to water, how far apart to space seedlings, and even gentle reminders about mistakes most of us have made a dozen times, like burying seeds too deep or drowning them with too much care. Years ago, I knew a woman in her 70s who was just beginning container gardening after moving to an apartment. She confessed she felt intimidated by all the complicated advice online, but when she bought a packet of Botanical Interests lettuce seeds, the instructions were so clear and calming that she planted her first container that same afternoon. No YouTube tutorials, no confusion, just simple steps she could follow at her own pace. The seeds germinated beautifully, and she told me it felt like the company had taken her by the hand. Beyond the instructions, their seed quality is consistently strong. Herbs like basil, rosemary, and cilantro sprout reliably season after season, which is wonderful for gardeners who may not have the energy to restart pots repeatedly. Their website even has a planting calendar tool type in your zip code, and it tells you exactly when to sow each crop in your specific region. For seniors learning a new microclimate or adjusting to changing weather patterns, this feature takes so much stress out of planning. And if you're watching your budget, their rewards program offers free packets over time, something that can easily save a gardener $20, $30, even $40 just by purchasing what they'd buy anyway. Botanical Interests may not have the rarest seeds, but what they offer is something equally valuable: confidence, clarity, and a gentle invitation for gardeners of every age to grow with success rather than struggle. University extension programs are, without exaggeration, one of the most overlooked treasures in the gardening world, especially for older gardeners who want reliability without high costs. Most people don't realize that state universities like Penn State, Cornell, UC Davis, and Texas A&M run agricultural programs that quietly sell seeds and plants to the public at prices so low they make nursery markups look almost unreal. These aren't random varieties either. They're seeds that have been tested in real research plots, measured for germination, strength, disease, resistance, heat tolerance, and yield. I remember visiting a small demonstration garden run by a university in North Carolina. They had rows of tomatoes labeled with trial results, which varieties cracked in rain, which held up to late blight, which thrived even in heavy clay. One gardener there, an older gentleman who'd struggled with tomato disease for years, pointed to a trial variety and said, "That one changed everything for me. I finally got a full harvest again." That's the quiet magic of university-backed seeds. They're tailored for your region, not for national marketing. Many universities hold annual sales from February to April, and the pricing is astonishing, often half or even a third of what nurseries charge. Because universities aren't trying to turn a profit, they simply offer what grows best in your climate. Some programs even provide young vegetable starts, berry plants, or native perennials for just a few dollars each. The value doesn't stop at the seeds. Extension offices regularly offer free or low-cost workshops on pruning, seed saving, composting, and container gardening, taught by trained horticulturists who answer real questions instead of offering generic advice. I once sat beside a widow in her late 60s during a seed-saving workshop. She whispered that she'd been too embarrassed to ask certain questions at garden centers because she felt rushed or brushed off. But in that workshop, she felt safe, welcomed, and understood. She walked out with new knowledge and a small envelope of saved tomato seeds she was proud of. That experience is what extension programs do best. They educate, empower, and bring confidence back into the hands of gardeners who deserve it. If you want seeds that grow stronger, plants that survive longer, and guidance that feels like having a gardening mentor by your side, your local university extension program is a resource you'll want to explore sooner rather than later. Specialty plant societies are one of the most quietly powerful resources a gardener can discover. Yet, many people spend decades growing without ever knowing they exist. These groups, like the North American Rock Garden Society, the Hardy Plant Society, and dozens of regional or crop-specific clubs, are built by people who aren't just gardeners, but guardians of rare and unusual plants. Joining one feels a little like joining a secret club, but in the warmest, most welcoming way. Members save seeds from plants they've grown for 10, 20, sometimes even 50 years. And they share those seeds through annual exchanges that are astonishingly affordable. I once met a retired postal worker in Oregon who had been hunting for a particular alpine perennial she remembered from her childhood. She searched nurseries for years with no luck. But when she joined a rock garden society, a fellow member mailed her seeds for that exact plant for just $2 and included a handwritten note about how to grow it in partial shade. She told me receiving those seeds felt like receiving a memory back. Many societies operate on an honor system trade model. You send seeds from something you love, and someone else sends you theirs, no money involved at all. For older gardeners who might feel isolated or limited in mobility, this creates a beautiful sense of connection. It's not just about the plants, it's about the conversation that travels with them. Newsletters and yearbooks often feature advice from growers who have spent decades perfecting their craft tips on overwintering delicate varieties, stories about saving seeds through harsh winters, and gentle guidance that feels far more human than anything found in a store-bought packet. The best part: these societies open the door to plants. Nurseries will never stock alpine miniatures, perfect for containers, heirloom beans from faraway regions, medicinal herbs nearly lost to time. If you've ever wanted your garden to hold something truly unique, something you can't buy on a shelf, specialty plant societies offer a world where rare beauty is shared freely, generously, and often for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Wholesale grower networks are the point in this journey where many gardeners feel their eyes truly open. Because this is where you stop shopping like a casual hobbyist and start buying like the very nurseries you've supported for years. Companies like Johnny's Selected Seeds, through their wholesale division, Harris Seeds and Stokes Seeds, supply commercial greenhouses, farmers, and botanical gardens. But what most gardeners don't realize is that many of these suppliers quietly allow everyday people to purchase directly. No business license, no paperwork, no big contracts, just minimum order amounts, often between $50 and $100. That may seem like a lot at first, but when you see how drastically different the pricing is, everything begins to make sense. I once spoke with a small-town gardener in her early 70s who had been buying lettuce seeds from a box store for nearly $4 a packet. She discovered that the wholesale version cost just $25 for an entire 1-pound bag, enough to sow salads for years. She ended up splitting the bag with 5 friends from her senior center, and each woman walked away with more seeds than she had space to plant, for less than the price of a cup of tea. Wholesale sites also publish detailed germination rates right on the page. You're not guessing whether a packet will surprise you with weak seedlings. You're buying with the same confidence professionals rely on. And if you shop in late fall, you'll often find discounted previous season stock still viable for 2 or 3 more years if stored correctly, sometimes at 40 to 60% off. A gardener on a fixed income can build an entire seed collection this way, spending pennies for what would normally cost hundreds. One of my favorite tips is forming a tiny seed circle with neighbors or gardening club members. Everyone chooses a crop or two to buy wholesale, then trades portions with one another. It becomes a joyful ritual of sharing abundance, something that reminds many older gardeners of how neighbors used to swap canned peaches or extra zucchini. Wholesale networks offer more than savings. They offer the chance to reclaim fairness in a gardening world steeped in retail markups. Buying like a professional isn't just smart, it's empowering. Government seed banks are the final stop on this journey, and they are unlike anything most home gardeners ever imagine exists. These are not stores, and they are not companies. They are national publicly funded libraries of life vaults of plant genetics, preserved for the sake of research agriculture and the future of food itself. The USDA's GRIN system, along with major seed banks in Canada, the UK, and Australia, contains varieties collected from mountains, deserts, farms, forests, and indigenous communities around the globe. Many of these plants no longer exist in commercial markets at all. When you search their databases, you'll find landraces that survived droughts, beans that grew on Appalachian homesteads a century ago, melons adapted to scorching heat tomatoes, resistant to diseases that wipe out entire crops today. I once spoke with a horticulturist who described these seeds as messages from the past, waiting for someone who understands them. And the astonishing part, the part few gardeners know, is that individuals can request small quantities of these seeds for free or for just a minimal handling fee. You don't need credentials or a research grant. You simply need to explain where you garden and why you're interested in the variety. They're not looking for scientific papers, just honest stewardship. I knew a retired biologist in Tennessee who requested a drought-tolerant pea variety from the USDA collection after reading about its resilience. She grew it in a raised bed behind her house, carefully observed its growth, and sent back a simple note about how it performed under her summer heat. She said the experience made her feel connected not only to her garden, but to the world. These seed banks hold more than 500,000 varieties, far more than any gardener could hope to explore in a lifetime, and accessing them feels like stepping into a global conversation about preservation culture and survival. For older gardeners, especially those who appreciate history and meaning, this source offers a rare kind of fulfillment, the chance to grow something truly irreplaceable, something humanity has chosen to save. If you've ever wanted to feel part of something bigger than a backyard garden, government seed banks quietly offer that invitation. When you step back and look at all 8 of these hidden sources, dear friend, a beautiful truth begins to emerge. Gardening doesn't have to be expensive, limited, or dictated by whatever a store decides to place on its shelves. With just a bit of curiosity and the gentle courage to try something new, You gain access to varieties tested by universities, preserved by communities, treasured by families, and protected by nations. You reclaim choice, independence, and possibility. I've watched so many older gardeners rediscover their spark simply by growing a plant they never thought they could find. A woman in Florida once told me she cried when she grew a rare Cuban oregano she remembered from her childhood. A man in Montana felt proud growing a drought-tolerant squash he ordered from a seed bank, knowing he was helping preserve something precious. These small, quiet victories matter more than people realize. And when you start saving seeds, whether from a humble basil pot or a treasured bean, you begin building your own legacy. A legacy of flavor, resilience, and memory that can be passed down or shared with neighbors the way people used to swap stories over back fences. So if you do one thing today, choose 3 of these sources and bookmark them. Give yourself the gift of possibility. And then take a moment to think about the garden you truly want, not the one shaped by marketing, but the one shaped by your climate, your hands, your pace, and your joy. Your age doesn't limit you. Your budget doesn't define you. Your garden grows because you nurture it season after season. And in that soft, steady way, you're already doing something extraordinary. Until our next conversation, may your soil be rich, your seeds be strong, and your heart stay open to the small miracles waiting quietly in every garden bed.